Good morning, panelists. Please start. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am Barb West, the Executive Director of the Southwest Washington Accountable Community of Health. Before we get started, just wanted to remind you about a few Zoom housekeeping issues. The audience is muted and your video cameras are turned off. You should only see the panelists and the slides when they are shown. If you do have technology issues, though, please put it in the chat box. There is only the option to chat the panelists, but not the entire audience, so you can't be talking to each other. Our tech gurus will see your chats to the panelists, and we'll get back to you individually, also via the chat box. If you have questions for the speakers today, please use the Q&A box, and we will do our best to get to as many questions as possible, although from the first two events this morning, there have been lots of questions. Both the chat and the Q&A function should be at the bottom of your screen. We're going to record all the sessions, and copies of all the slides will be available on the website after the third day of this symposium. The website again is www.washingtonach.org. So let me just review in case you missed the first two presentations. First, we heard from John Powell this morning about moving from a conceptual understanding of equity and race to actual implementation and practice. We heard about belonging and bringing our full self to the party, so to speak. And you're going to hear more about that from some of our community partners in the next hour. This panel is focused on partnerships that are addressing the COVID pandemic in 3 different regions of the state, specifically with an emphasis on the hard-hit populations. Our first speaker is going to be Tanika Watford-Williams from the More Right Group, who will talk about her organization's partnership with Cascade Pacific Action Alliance, or as some of us know it, CPAA. Marta Martinez Oliveira and Guillermina Bizante will discuss their work at Catholic Community Services Farm Work Center and the support they received from the North Sound ACH. And finally, Veronica Ferreras from the Chelan Douglas Health District will share how they've worked with North Central ACH to support the work of the Hispanic Latinx community. We're going to post their bios in the chat box so we can get straight to hearing from them. As previous facilitators, I have the wonderful job of keeping them on time. So I will be reminding the panelists when they only have a minute left to finish their presentations. Roughly you have 6 to 7 minutes for your presentation. And I'm going to turn it over first to Tanika from the More Right Group. Tanika?
Thank you, Barb. It's Tanika Watford-Williams with the More Right Group. And I want to thank you all for inviting us here to let you know a little bit about us and our partnerships. So let's go through. So I'm Tanika Watford-Williams. The next slide. I figured I'll give you a little bit of history about the More Right Group, as some of you just don't know who we are. So the More Right Group, we are a nonprofit. Our mission is to break the cycle of poverty, abuse, and abandonment by providing hope. And our vision is to create a community where everyone can thrive. So these two people here are actually my parents. So the More Right group was started by the gentleman here, my father, Jesse Moore. So the names Moore and Wright are family names. So the Moore family, the Wright family, this is my mother. And so the Wright comes from my biological grandmother's name. So we're not better than other people. We just came together originally as a family. And I tell people that I was voluntold to be the executive director a few years back. So the More Right Group, we are located here in Washington, in Thurston County, and we are also in Alabama is where we started, just to get basic resources and supplies to families and communities in Alabama to be able to, we learned that children weren't having shoes and just basic resources. Um, and we wanted to help our community in the best way. So we partner with a lot of different companies. We get donations in, and then we support partners in our community through donations to them, to our communities. So one of our programs, before we get into what we do within our disaster and COVID time, I figured I would tell you a little bit about who we were before COVID. So the next slide, please. So one of our major programs prior was our Resource Connection Center. So our Resource Connection Center took donations and items, and our partners could come into our building and physically pick up donations and items and kind of shop in. So through our partnerships with Walmart and Amazon and a host of other places, we used to receive about 14 pallets a week of donations that our partners then had lots of choices of to be able to fit the needs of families that they may be servicing. So, our Resource Connection Center was our main program, along with our Warehouse and Logistics Academy, which is the next slide. So, our Warehouse and Logistics Academy offers training, and we are an eligible training provider, and we work with populations that need a little more assistance and hands on who might not be able to attend college classes. So, we work with Pack Mountain and other partners to be able to offer trainings to low income, unemployed ex offenders. Uh, People coming out of recovery, just a host of community members. So this was kind of us pre-COVID, along with one small program that we then called our Disaster Distribution Center, which is the next slide. So when COVID hit, our Disaster Distribution Center kind of became first and forefront, and we went from servicing a few organizations, probably about 25, to now servicing about 207 organizations in well over 28 counties, impacting over 500,000 families. So since COVID hit, we then we've distributed over $9 million worth of donations to help families be able to be better, from PPE to toys to beds and different things for even organizations to be able to expand their services into in homeless shelters that had to expand very quickly. And this is kind of where our partnerships with CPAA has grown tremendously. They were prior a partner, but when COVID hit, um, their partnership with us kind of changed in a lot of ways as we've had to shift and pivot in a lot of ways. As I mentioned before, we used to get 14 pallets, and when COVID hit, we went from 14 pallets to 4 truckloads a week, right? So in that time frame and in that span of growth, our partnership with CPAA has been great because we've been able to connect with their partners like VEST and other organizations that Choice kind of say, what do you need and what do you have? And let's put it out into the community. So a lot of our partnerships have been able to expand and grow so we can kind of be us and be able to keep going. So the next slide. So these are some pictures of us doing distributions and what we have available. So, and what we've been able to move. So we've been able through CPAA's employee to be able to partner Amber with in Pierce County to be able to impact families there through cleaning products and beds and a host of things. And so our partnership with them has been able to let us kind of be us, to let us be able to focus on who we are, and also kind of add other services within our disaster distribution center. So the next slide. So one of the things that happened when COVID hit is that the More Right Group added a component of food box distribution. We learned that a lot of our partners weren't able to have access to a lot of food offerings anymore, and the needs kind of expanded, right? So we were asked, could we take on food distribution? And we were super hesitant because, like a lot of people, we had staff and everyone we had to we work with WEX and community jobs programs that we had to let go home to keep people safe. And we reached out to Choice and explained to them this opportunity, who stepped up and literally sent their own staff to help us during distribution times. So I'll go to the next slide. We've been able to do community distribution days. Next slide. And we've been able to focus on what we do well. So we've been able to create programs that we are about to launch, like our partnership voucher program, where organizations can give out vouchers to their clients and get the things they need from us. Next slide. We've been able to partner with some international organizations to be able to offer things to our existing partners as well because of this partnership with CPAA. So organizations we work with, we can help them be able to create um, free health clinics through our partnerships with MAP and Heart to Heart. Next slide. And we're also been able to expand some of our retail partnerships through our partners as well in other places beyond just here in Washington, because we can focus on being who we are because of our partnership with CPA. Yeah. Next slide. Totes for Hope, been able to do, and next slide. That is it. So I thank you for your time, and we'll have questions at the end.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move next to the Farm Workers Center. And you have about 7 minutes, and I'll keep track of the time for you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Marta Martinez with Catholic Community Services Farm Worker Center in Mount Vernon. I am the program coordinator here, and I'm with my co-worker.
And my name is Guillermina Basante. I'm also the program coordinator, and thank you all for being here, and also to hear our little bit about us, and but also thank you, the North Sound, for inviting us to be part of this panel and be able to talk about what we do, and look forward to hear from all you guys.
So we can move on, yes. And so to start off, we wanted to share a little bit of how our organization brought in our center. About 5 years ago, us, Guillermina and I, along with our previous director, Sister Susan Wells, co-founded this center. And her idea behind it was to bring up the voices of people that were in the shadows, like the farm workers, especially the indigenous farm workers that come from Mexico, and the Latino farm workers that are usually on the side, and they have a more difficult time accessing different resources that are available in our community. And so that was our mission and goal, to really focus on that targeted population and how we can better serve them, to be able to focus a lot in educational programs, social services, advocacy. How do we bring farm worker voices up to these issues when they're having issues with schools, with their children, or if they can access health benefits, or if they can access, going to city council events, how can they bring in their own voices? So that's kind of how our work started, primarily focusing on advocacy and right, helping farm workers in rising and speaking up for their needs.
And also at the Farm Worker Center, we also provide basic literacy for for students or for people in the community that in their region in Mexico they didn't have the opportunity to attend to school. And here at the Farm Worker, with collaboration with the Mexican Council, we have that literacy going on. But due to COVID-19, many of our program has we needed to kind of like stop, have a little break because of the whole situation that's happening. With that said, there was this family that when I would like to share a story how what COVID had affected our here in our community here in Skagit County, and how the North Sound has be able to step in and help a family. There was a family of 22 that they all tested positive to COVID-19. So this family reached out to us that they needed some help, and they are, as you could see in the photo, people that works in the fields that they're vulnerable. They didn't know where to get the help, so they call us and say, "Hey, Guillermina, you know, this is something that we're not accustomed to reach out to, but we need help with with rental assistance. And I don't know where can somebody help us because we all got tested, and they were very afraid to reach out to other places because of the lack of language, because they speak in Mixtec, and also I speak Mixtec, and so Marta, and it's very, I feel like our role here at the Farm Worker Center be able to have that communication with the community that we're serving and marginalize with them, and be able to help this family. And that's something that North Sound have been also incredible to help us help and support the job and our dream to continue working with the farm workers, and also be able to collaborate. In at the beginning of just a couple months ago, we were part time, and now that North Sound has stepped up to, I will say, keep dreaming big, and with that, we knew that Martha and I, we knew that we needed to put more hours and help the community. And as you guys could see this photo, we have the opportunity to go to the fields. We have had the opportunity to go and help people. Can you the next slide, please? With I think
The next one,
the next one.
actually.
Yeah, that one. So with that said, we with the help that North Sound have help the Farm Worker Center to increase our hours. We had the opportunity to go and help the farm workers and distribute masks, and also, as you can see, the other slide is also um, connecting family with local farm vegetables to you have a
Yes. What in the previous one, I think we're out of order, but with the food, we were able to partner with other organizations to bring organic farm fresh foods to farm workers, because most of the times when we think about it, um, farm workers are mostly working and picking these things, these vegetables, but they don't have the opportunity to be able to afford them. So to be able to partner with other organizations to be able to provide something like this that's local and goes back into our own farm worker people, we were able to see and when people were picking up their boxes, and they said, well, everything in here is something that we're able to eat and we're accustomed to eating, because a lot of the times, just speaking as part of our culture, being indigenous women of Mexico, we know that we tend to eat a lot more fresh things because we make things from scratch. So a lot of them were very appreciative to be able to receive a box like this, because they, even though they pick these things, they themselves cannot afford to do that. So thanks to the support of the North Sound, we're able to extend our hours or not have to worry about, like, oh well, we have to cut this short because we don't have enough working hours, or we don't have the capacity to take this on. And I mean, when all of this with COVID arose, we had to do other, like Tanika mentioned, that we had to take in food distributions, rental assistance, energy assistance, diapers, other things, foods, eh, all of the needs that were already there just were emphasized to a bigger magnitude, that we had to put in more hours and more time and commitment to what we were already doing. And thanks to the North Sound, where we were able to become full time. And even with that, we're still thinking, oh, we need more time. We need more time, because there's so much that we need to do to support our community in these difficult times.
Yeah, and a big shout out to Liz really for believing us, and also for the North Sound believing us and still doing the job that it's farm workers are essential. And also to Vanessa Diaz, she also reached out to us. We have that collaboration really, and see that there's a highly need here in Sky County, but also there's that vulnerable, but there's also other level of vulnerability, the people that are in the shadow, as Martha stated before. And it's hard. I mean, we're just here to do a little bit about us, but we cannot do it without the help. Obviously, our hours need to be extended to we need to do this job, but also just thank them. I mean, thank you for what you guys are doing. If it wasn't for you guys, we couldn't be able to go more and beyond to the farm workers and all, or even helping with those boxes. It might be a little simple, or reaching out to the local farms, to the local farm workers, and get that connection, and say, hey, we're here. You can reach out to us, and we cannot do this without the North Sound. And thank you for you guys. Thank you.
Thanks to both of you. Looking at this food box, whoops, there it went. Looking at the food box, I was like, oh, is it getting close to lunchtime? That looks great. Okay, so let's move to another part of the state now. We're going to hear from Veronica from the Chelan Douglas Health District, and talk about a little bit different approach that they're using in their area. Veronica?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Veronica Frias. I am the Communications Director for Chelan Douglas Health District. I've been serving as the Public Information Officer for our local COVID-19 incident management team since March. So I just want to be very honest and say that I was very hesitant to accept this invitation when my fellow NCACH office mates invited me to participate in this discussion. I had been going at this COVID response for over 8 months with very little time off, and I still had a very full plate of work to do and get done. However, I knew that they thought of me for a reason, and I also knew that this was just my opportunity to show some appreciation for all of the hard work that they have done to assist CDHD in our response. So you heard me say office mates, and that is literally because the North Center Accountable Community of Health, they actually operate from our Chelan Douglas Health District building, which is the beautiful skyscraper you're looking at on your screen. It's located in East Wenatchee. And even though both entities, we have separate agendas, we still come together for like all staff meetings, seasonal luncheons, and even some work-related duties that have brought us together to where we do work as a team, which I will share a little bit more about in a future slide. Next slide. Oops. Okay. So since the very beginning of the COVID-19 response, the North Central Accountable Community Health offered to assist Chelan Douglas Health District. They participated in our incident management team briefings, and they actually took on a number of projects of their own, where they helped facilitate public outreach, some of which encouraged community members to participate while following safety guidelines that were in place. This included like social media contests, I Can Help door hangers and postcards, which basically was a project that encouraged neighbors to help one another, particularly those that were self-isolating at home and were not able to do their errands, go grocery shopping or pick up the mail. So NCACH was already doing wonders in our community. So when I was asked to help lead the Spanish communication efforts at a regional level, I knew I could rely on them to take the lead, and that's exactly what happened. So local health jurisdictions in Grant County, Okanagan, Douglas, Chelan, and Kittitas County, we meet once a week, and we basically discuss COVID-19 updates, challenges, and just kind of keep each other up to date on our local response efforts. And it was during one of these calls that we all identified a need to better penetrate the Latino community with COVID-19 communications and updates. And being the only Latina on that call, it was pretty natural for everyone to rely on me to take this on. However, I was pretty new to my role, and I was struggling myself to make ends meet with the current workload that I had at the time. So I knew there was just no way I could manage a regional effort of this magnitude. So I asked NCACH if they could help facilitate communication to the Latino community at this regional level. Needless to say, they didn't hesitate. They agreed to take on the challenge, and they coordinated meetings, established contracts, facilitated interviews, and helped draft radio spots that played throughout the North Central region. Not only did they coordinate these efforts, they actually paid for all of these radio spots. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share this slide because it gives a good visual for the amount of work that went behind coordinating a regional Spanish message. The process for getting a simple 30-second PSA drafted, translated, recorded, and then sent off to the radio stations, it truly took a lot of coordination and time from the NCACH. And I believe at one point we were even meeting twice a week. There was one meeting specifically that they coordinated with public health partners, and then a second meeting that was more oriented for community members to help identify any messaging needs and gaps in our community. Next slide, please. So I wanted to include this picture and conclude my presentation with this very fun picture of one of our North Central Accountable Community of Health office mates, Caroline Tellier, and our CDHD staff member, Javier Ramos. This was during a mass stockpile effort during the summer of 2018. CDHD actually received a very large shipment of masks, and we needed help hauling them into our basement. There was a huge semi out in a front parking lot, so we needed to get this done quick. And I definitely just believe that the partnership between CDHD and the ACH has really made this COVID response much easier. I'm very thankful that I was able to tap into them for help and assistance. The biggest lesson I've learned through this response is to definitely ask for help when you need it, and not to be afraid and say that I'm literally drowning, because NCH has literally been the best life jacket ever, and I'm just very thankful to be able to witness them in action. And needless to say, just the fact that we have them here physically in the building has just really made that relationship much better and much easier. So yeah, that was just my 2 cents on my experience with the ACH.
Great. Thank you to all of you. Now, if you think you're off the hook, you're not yet. We've got some questions for you. So let me just start with, in a pandemic like we're in now, and like we'd like to get out of at some point in time, if you were to name 1 or 2 things that were most important to you about how the ACH helped you, what would you say if you could only pick 1 or 2 things? Which one of you want to start? We'll let Veronica off the hook for a little bit. Marta, do you want to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say that the accessibility that the North Sound gave us to be able to apply for the grants that we were able to receive was very different, just because I've been working with my supervisor with learning how to do grants and learning that process, and just seeing the the difference from the other ones that we have worked on. And then coming along with the North Sound, I just noticed that it was a lot more accessible. And, you know, even for me as a person who's barely learning, I thought that, oh, wow, like we don't have to put in such a professional, because I mean, I'm not accustomed to writing in that way. So for me, and just, you know, kind of observing at a distance, I was like, oh, wow, this was a lot simpler than the previous things that we have applied for. And you know, they gave us a room to really explore, like to really identify in that grant what is the need that we're seeing in our community and how to best put, you know, to request for the needs that we're seeing, especially right now with the pandemic. I think that was something great that I saw.
With that said, too, just for them, like the keynote, who was it?
John Powell.
John Powell, you know, sometimes there's organization out there that they just always in their comfort zone. So I feel like North Sound is out of the comfort zone. They want to learn. They want to, they love what we do, but at the same time helping what is the same thing, helping the community and helping the most vulnerable and be very diverse. I feel like that's something that North Sound has done, be able to work with diverse community, and I feel like thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
Great. So, Tanika, what was most important about your partnership? I bet I could guess the answer, but most important.
So most important to us was kind of the partnerships they helped us build, because we're very much so an organization that tries not to be in the box, and working with CPAA and Choice was allowing us to kind of stay who we are, right? So they were able to send organizations to us. We were able to say, this is all we have, because going from 14 pallets to 4 truckloads and trying to finagle location and space and needs became a real thing, right? And we were trying not to drown, in trying to continue to be able to be us to serve people. So to be able to say, okay, this is what we're going to do on this distribution day, send it out to the networks we have, but they were able to send it beyond us, and we were able to cultivate and still have some relationships with other places in other counties that we were not even touching yet. So like Wakayakum and some other counties that now we serve on a regular basis.
Great, great. So finding new friends, right? Yeah. Veronica, I'm going to change the question for you. So can you verify the content of the Spanish PSAs? Were they COVID related? And how long did the radio spots run? And were you able to measure actual results from those PSAs?
Yeah, so the radio spots and the actual content of the messaging was definitely, it was all COVID related. So we, in both of the meetings that ACH that they were coordinating. So one of the meetings I mentioned was just public health, basically the public information officers for public health. And we would meet with Caroline, she was the one that was coordinating the calls, and we would discuss with her the messaging for the week or what we wanted to touch base on, whether it was masking or depends if it was like 4th of July weekend coming up. We wanted to really focus and emphasize on social gatherings and stuff. So depending on the week or whatnot, we would kind of tailor the message. And then the second other meeting with community organizations, they would provide feedback on the best way to frame the message, or possibly, you know, who to bring in for a radio interview for that week. And the last question about basically measuring some of the analytics and stuff, I don't think we've had time to really look into that, but I know we got a lot of good feedback from various partners about the messaging that we coordinated and all of the PSAs that were being run.
That's great. That's great. So ACHs, we all like to think we're perfect, but we know we're not. And so if there is one thing that, based on your experience with each of your ACHs, is there one thing that you might suggest that we could do differently, could improve how we work in our communities? Who wants to start? Tanika.
So I have learned in this process of meeting with you all to get ready for here that other people got funding. I'm not a jealous type, but we're not, we didn't see funding, but we're not a part of all the processes before, right? But we know that through this partnership, they're working with us on other things for that later on. But it's been interesting to learn how other places function and work. But yeah, so that was, and that answers another question of always needs for people, right? But to be able to move things has helped us be able to not drown. So it's not so heavy on us. So
Great. Okay. Okay, for those that got funding over here. Veronica?
The only thing I could suggest is possibly just including more organizations that really serve the Latino community. And because I know we have like our CHIs, our community health improvement little meetings here and there. I haven't attended them in a while due to COVID, but I would say just really tapping into our local organizations that truly serve our Hispanic community and letting them know of any resources that are available to the ACH. And then maybe possibly hiring somebody that is Spanish speaking or Latino themselves. Because I know this was actually one of the barriers that we kind of faced, or something that we were up against when I asked the ACH if they could lead these efforts. There was nobody in, the NCACH that spoke Spanish, and so that's one thing that I'm truly grateful for, because even though nobody really spoke Spanish, they were still willing to take on the lead, and they did. But yeah, possibly hiring somebody if there's a feature for them, and just including being more inclusive of the Latino community.
Okay, great suggestions. Marta, what about your team?
I think for us, we are okay. We don't have anything that we can add. I mean, we've had great communication with multiple members of the ACH, and
they're very open, really. Vanessa is one of them. Vanessa Diaz, really, we sounds like we have a lot in common as well. And also just hear how Liz is very open to hear our perspective, our view, and also our opinion into things. But bottom line is our job, that really who are we helping here in Skagit County, and that's our job to do so, right? But just bottom line is helping the farm worker family and non-farm workers. So I guess having them have that heart for them and be open with it, I feel like I have nothing, like Marta said, nothing to make me suggest.
I mean, we've had a wonderful experience, and just looking forward to continue our work with them, and to really, we're
Do
really
more things.
grateful.
Yeah.
So let me ask you another question before I leave you. So given that we're going to be in this pandemic for a while, as much as we'd like to not think so, what are your lessons that you're learning around COVID that you could help your communities with? So I'm using the COVID or the pandemic as, this was a serious emergency that didn't just come and go. It's with us for a while. So what are those lessons that you've learned so far?
So some of the things that we have learned is just really going back to some of our volunteers who were here before COVID, just because there's so many things that are of great emergency or that are needed in our community that when it's only us, Guillermina and I are the ones that are full-time staff here at the center, and then we have our supervisor who we check in when we're in doubt or things like that. But our work greatly depends on volunteers. So just keeping the connection, even though it's really difficult because we can't continue to have gatherings like we used to have, which we used to kind of do to appreciate our volunteers who would come and support the work that we're doing. Like Yarmina mentioned, we had volunteers for our adult education classes, for our art studio, for our sewing classes that we used to hold before, but now we're slowly trying to transition. How can we do that, but at the same time keeping our volunteers safe, because it's difficult to have to ask our volunteers to kind of put themselves at risk, but at the same time we know that they have the heart to help, and it's just keeping them engaged with minimal risk.
Great. Okay, Tanika.
Our lessons learned. I think we've learned a bunch of lessons in this process, right? We've learned that um, certain things that we started to do, like trying to put classes virtual or even to um, put our order form and our partnership applications and everything, would be handy to be able to start being able to socially distance. We learned the importance of extra hands, right? Because same thing when you have volunteers who have to go home because of the pandemic, you learn how important it is to have extra hands when things are coming at you, which was so powerful when we were able to do food distribution, since we didn't have to physically do it all ourselves, and CPA took that on. But we've also learned the importance of certain small items, right? Because our resource connection center already distributed things. But when everything shuts down and transportation halts, and soap is important more than ever, right? And masks and getting things quickly. We've learned that our bigger impact happens when we stick to being who we are, and receive things and let our partners do a lot of other things, right? My heart is always for getting things in the hands of people. And we've learned that sometimes we might have to do a mass distribution to our partners and send out 2 or 3 truckloads in a day or two to them, knowing that we put in stipulations that they have to then send them out quickly into the community. So we know that we do distribution well, right? We do logistics well. And to be able to do that and stick with that helps you to be able to help your community in a larger way. So that we've learned a lot in this process.
That's good. Yeah. Veronica, what about you?
So I think I've had more of a personal learning, huge learning experience from all of this, and that's just to not take criticism personally. I think that because I am the communications, person for this agency, the agency itself has been under a lot of pressure, and we've had a lot of turnover in our staff, some unforeseen retirements or some early retirements that we weren't expecting. And then because we are the lead agency in this response, I feel like a lot of external organizations, basically thought that we were fully resourced and fully capable of taking on, this response. And I think it's been a hard hit for any agency or any organization that's in the COVID response. It's a huge learning curve, and we received just a lot of pressure for things we weren't doing right, things we did and weren't doing right, or things we didn't do, and it's definitely a learning curve. So I think just realizing that you can ask for help, and that there will always be somebody available, and there will be people kind enough to help, organizations that are willing to lend a hand, and just making sure that those you cherish and forever hold those partnerships, because you never know when you might need them again, and
Right.
just keeping on that relationship with them.
Mhm. So let me just piggyback on that, Veronica, and just ask you while I've got you. So if you could step back in, I guess it was March, and at the beginning of this pandemic, what would you ask your local government officials and state officials if you needed support for them? What are the 2 or 3 things you would say? Please provide this kind of support to help our community.
So I would definitely ask for funding, additional staff, and then a true incident management team that could help us lead these, the COVID-19 response. Because I don't know how many of you are familiar with FEMA and the incident management structure, but a lot of us that are in the agency, we hadn't really practiced incident command in a while. And so I think that those are the 3 major things I would have asked for, was to bring in a local incident, or an external incident management team that could truly help us and lead us into, okay, these are your incident objectives, and these are how many section chiefs you need, and just truly help pave the way for our response moving forward. I feel like we were paving our own way, obviously making mistakes and learning in the process, but I think that, and our resources, we've been really really careful with the resources that we have as an agency, and I think it all stems from the recession in 2008. We really downsized, and we never really upsized again. We simply kept those various hats. Various people were wearing various hats since 2008, and now you throw a pandemic on top of an underfunded, under-resourced agency, and we basically fell apart. So I think definitely resources and more of a structure on incident command.
Mm-hmm. So that's a great response in terms of, well, maybe not uplifting, but a great response in terms of a government agency. Tanika, how would you respond to that question?
I think I would piggyback off of Veronica a little bit on top of we initially, when COVID hit, um, kind of reached out to everyone we can think of to explain um, that we have truckloads coming to us, and we want to be able to impact our community, but we lack space, right? So and we were already tight on space. We were already using storage units because we had been looking for warehouse space anyway before COVID. And then more truckloads came, right? And we were able to then partner with the port temporarily. And we then had to leave the port building. Um, and because we in Thurston County went to phase 3, right? So when we went to phase 3 in July, we had to exit that space, which then created this new financial debt, a new kind of issue of space still being a pressing issue, right? Because we were able to get in our 4 truckloads and get those things out quicker. But then we had to then do our prior. So I would first ask for of course, financial assistance, right? We've never received any kind of state, federal, or local government funding at all through the Morite Group. And actually, through this pandemic time, we got about 3 grants. And so funding's of course important because we need to keep now new buildings and everything going, and we often pay for truck transportation. So we would ask for funding and space help because now we serve so many counties, and I feel like we have so many things that come into us now that without adequate space, it keeps us from serving as quickly as we could, right? So funding to be able to help with people and pay salaries and to be able to cover space, but also some connections because we've had connections with some incident command locations who are just like, this is what our county needs, and they come and get things from us. But we don't have those same connections with other counties, right? So some counties function really well with us. So foster care, for instance, comes to us directly for orders and certain things to service children in foster care, specifically in some counties. And everything is a little bit differently everywhere. So those kind of things would be our requests.
Mhm. So I've got a sort of a wrap-up question for the Farm Worker Center. How has COVID highlighted existing disparities, and has that changed conversations about equity in your community?
That's a great question. So as we mentioned before, there was already that great disparity in our community and how they're able to access health centers or how to get access to all of these social services that they need, but they're not able to because of language barriers. Their work hours are not inclusive to services that are offered out there. Um, so now that, with COVID, that has made a greater impact on them because many people, even though they're essential workers, had to be laid off because in their work area, there were people that were tested positive. So they had to shut down for like weeks, months, and so on. And thinking about that, people, farm workers that are working seasonally depend on this income to be able to survive the months that they're not working, especially that's in the winter. So to have to cut off their means of income just makes the need that they already had much greater. And so now one of the things that we have been helping people is getting them connected to the DSHS to be able to apply for food services. And even with that, there's a lot of kind of restrained because they always say, well, I don't have legal status. What if this affects me later down the road if there is a possibility to become legal in this country, and I don't want to apply for this because it might affect my children, myself, or anything in the future. And it just makes it more difficult to be able to say, that you need this help. How do we help you get it? And at the same time kind of make them feel at ease that maybe they're not gonna get something negative in return.
Yeah,
And
with that, it's like this example from this family that came, like they called me at the office and say, Yermina, I'm going through a hard time, but they say that I don't qualify for certain things. But what can I do if I have to buy my kid a diaper, or should I buy myself a food, or should I pay my bill, my light, or should I buy my gas, or should I not buy my kids little diapers and let the energy get cut, or should I pay my rent, but I don't get access for that for certain places because my apparently during the seasonal time I earn so much, and that's like that's something that some people are not getting equal opportunity and they
Mhm.
get denied, and it's hard to hear those stories, and I wish something could be done to address that. But I mean, that's something that we have to advocate in the higher level, and just to make some sort of like a change and have accessibility for everybody.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of the panelists today. Each of you brought very different perspectives on what you've had to do during this pandemic, and what you will continue to do until hopefully we see this come to an end. Several observations while you were sharing information with us. It was for the ACHs, we always think everyone knows who we are. And it became clear that some of you were not aware. So I would encourage you, if for people in the audience today, if you don't know who your ACH is, find them. And then the second is that for those of you that reached out to those ACHs in one way or another, it was great to see how they had so many relationships that they were able to connect so many other organizations or people in the community for you to actually address this situation that we've all been experiencing. I still can't quit thinking about those berries. I want them for lunch. That was a great picture. The other thing is that clearly, what a horrible thing that we have to have a pandemic or this kind of a situation to highlight that there still are significant disparities across our communities. But I hope that when this is over, we will not forget about those and actually do something about it. I think if you continue to work with your ACHs and remember that they are a part of your community, and that they always, I'm volunteering them all, are always ready, willing, and able to respond to very unexpected situations. All you have to do is just ask. So again, thank you to everyone. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Bonnie. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Barb. Thank you, everyone. A huge, huge thank you to all of our speakers and panelists today for your contributions and for all of your work in communities. There's just incredible, incredible work going on across the state. So I'm sure everyone is going to take many, many themes from today. Before we close, I'd just love to share a couple of the themes that I'm going to take. So I'll just kind of say them off the top of my head. A focus on vulnerable communities really leads to system improvements that benefit everyone. That was something that really stood out to me from John Powell and also from hearing from other panelists today. Removing barriers goes a really long way. So I'm thinking about barriers to grant application processes and loosening restrictions on funds and some other examples that we heard folks talk about. Really seeing the humanity in each other. That was another one. Really, John talked about bridging, creating bridges that lead us to this place of belonging. And really about stories and narratives. And the stories that we tell and the narratives that we choose to use really can, they just really matter and they really can lift us up. That's something I want to really think about some more. And we have a lot more work to do. That is really, really clear, but definitely from what I've heard today, we've got the tools to do it. So just wanted to give a huge thank you to all of you who have attended today. We are so honored that you chose to spend your whole morning with us, just to be here with us and each other and share all of these learnings. We will be back tomorrow morning at 8:30. We'll start the day with a panel focused on the healthcare authorities' work on developing an equity strategy. So definitely come and tune in for that. We will also have a panel on the social determinants of health. And then we'll close out tomorrow with a panel on tribal partnerships. So again, thank you so much to everybody who was here, who participated, who shared of your work. We're gonna just really look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And thank you for being patient with our technical difficulties this morning. And we hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, everyone.